This is Under Review, the show that talks about Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports stories as well. I'm Jordan Long. The Denver Broncos hit the bye week at 3-5, 3 wins and 5 losses. Let's take a look at their season, that is the Denver Broncos season, to this point. Of course, the Broncos have a whole new coaching staff as they hired Nathaniel Hackett as head coach, who had been the Packers' offensive coordinator. With the hire, Denver thought they would have a high-powered offense who was going to score points left and right. Denver knew they finally solved their quarterback play with a trade, acquiring Russell Wilson from Seattle. Now, I thought it was a mistake not to play the offensive starters in the preseason. I know I have criticized preseason, but the Broncos' offensive starters really needed it. It would have been beneficial for the starters to play a little bit in the preseason to understand Nathaniel Hackett's offense. Well, they didn't. And moving on to the regular season, they are 3-5, 3 wins and 5 losses. 4 of the 5 losses were 7 points or less. The Broncos in week 1 decided to try to kick a 64-yard field goal against Seattle. This was a puzzling decision because they faced 4th and 5 and they could have had Russell Wilson convert. Well, they tried the field goal and it was wide as they lost 17-16. So the field goal was no good and they dropped that game 17-16 to Seattle. Week 5 and 6 were both overtime losses. In week 5 against the Colts beat them 12-9. In week 6, a fumble by punt returner Montrell Washington set up the Chargers at the Broncos' 28-yard line, and the Chargers kicked a field goal, which was 39 yards to beat Denver 19-16. In week 7, they lost to the New York Jets 16-9. Of course, last week in London, England, Denver was down 17-14. Denver drove from their own 20-yard line down to the Jacksonville 2-yard line, and that's where running back Latavius Murray, so they gave it to running back Latavius Murray, who punched it in with 1 minute and 43 seconds left in the game to give the Denver Broncos a 21-17 lead. Well, on the first play of the Jacksonville Jaguars' next possession, Trevor Lawrence threw an interception and Denver iced the game. They won 21-17 going into their bye week. Now, 3-5 isn't great, but Denver could easily be 7-1 or 1-7. So I'd rather be 3-5 than 1-7, but I would rather be 7-1. But hey, you know what? 3-5 isn't bad, but it's not quite where the Broncos want to be. Offensively, quarterback Russell Wilson is still trying to learn the offense, and it's showing. Against Jacksonville, especially in the second half, the Broncos actually simplified the offense, and it was a great thing while it worked. Something changed, and whatever it was the right move. If you look at Russell Wilson to this point, he has 1,694 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, and 4 picks. 6 touchdowns and 4 picks isn't very good, but this is not what Denver thought they would get from him. 1,694 passing yards is just okay. I don't like just 6 touchdowns, and he's not reading the defenses as he's been picked off 4 times. If you look at Russell Wilson, it hasn't been all his fault. He has been pressured and blitzed because that offensive line can't protect him, and those have been sacks. That's either on Nathaniel Hackett or Russell Wilson. Hackett, he does the play calls, but Russell Wilson could change the play. The Broncos have given up 23 sacks on him. That is far too many, but that doesn't count the amount of times he has been hit or pressured. Offensively, overall, the Broncos are the 23rd ranked defense in total offense, getting 328.9 yards per game. 20th in passing yards at 220.5 yards per game. Rushing wise, I am fine with what they are doing because they gain 108.4 yards per game. Not bad, but those numbers need to improve. Scoring-wise, and this is where I have a big problem with the offense. They cannot score. In fact, Denver is last in red zone scoring in terms of scoring touchdowns. When they hit the red zone, they have scored a touchdown on 35% of those drives. Dead last. That needs to be improved. At least Denver isn't last in scoring offense as they score 15.1 points per game. That's second to last. The Pittsburgh Steelers are last at 15 points per game. So offensively, they struggle. The defense has kept them in games. It's one of the best in the NFL. Teams cannot score on this defense because the Broncos defense is so good. They permit 16.5 points per game. Only Buffalo's defense is better, giving up 14 points per game. Second in yards allowed at 288.5 yards per game. Teams cannot pass on this offense, or I should say this defense. Their passing game, that is the opponent's offensive passing game, cannot pass on this defense. Denver has given up 165.8 yards per game, which is number one in the NFL through the air. The one area that needs cleaning up is the rush defense. Teams can just run the ball on this defense, and the Broncos have given up 122.6 yards per game on the ground. So basically, there are gashes on the defense when opponents run the ball, and it's shown as they give up 122.6 yards per game on the ground, 19th in the NFL. The defense, though, is keeping them in games. They are able to put pressure on the quarterbacks, and those have equaled 24 sacks. Sure, they pressure the quarterbacks, but the one thing I need to see is more turnovers. Those have not equaled turnovers. The Broncos have 6 interceptions and 3 fumble recoveries, a total of 9 turnovers. That number must go up after the bye week to give the ball back to that offense to score more points. And field position is a big deal because if you have a shorter field position, then the offense can score more points. At 3 wins and 5 losses, it's not time to panic yet. They still could go on a run to earn a playoff spot for the first time since they won Super Bowl 50. It's still possible. Now, the one area that needs cleaning up, and it really does bug me, is the fact that this team has too many penalties and they are an undisciplined team. That's on Nathaniel Hackett. On defense, those penalties keep drives alive for the opponent's offense. Of course, those are drive killers for the offense, especially if you have a hold or a false start. So defensively, that keeps opponents' drives alive, and on offense, that kills your drives. Denver is number one in penalties, a stat you don't want to lead in. Denver has been called for a league-high 70 penalties for 601 yards. For comparison, the team behind them is the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle has been called for 60 penalties for 528 yards. They need to fix that. Do not keep getting called for penalties. You can't keep getting flagged. All in all, 3-5 is not where this football team wants to be at the bye week, but hey, it could be far worse. The Broncos return to action on November 13th when they head on the road to face the Tennessee Titans. As for the bye week, enjoy it if you're the Denver Broncos and Broncos fans. If you're a player and a fan, watch football and enjoy the weekend because you don't play until you face the Tennessee Titans next Sunday. We're going to move on to the NFL trade deadline and what the Denver Broncos did. The Broncos knew the NFL trade deadline was at 2 p.m. Mountain Time on Tuesday. I thought the Broncos would just wait and let the trade deadline pass without doing anything. It seemed like they were happy with their roster and they were going to stand pat. Well, they didn't. The Broncos decided to send Bradley Chubb to the Miami Dolphins and a 5th-round pick. The thing is I do like that they got a 1st-round pick for 2023, which is this year's draft, which will be held, later on in the year. But the thing is you've got a first round pick for the 2023 draft, which is the draft coming up, and a fourth round pick in 2024. So you're looking at a first round pick in 2023 and a fourth round pick in 2024. And running back Chase Edmonds. For the Broncos, I get it. The Broncos didn't have a first round pick in the 2023 NFL draft since Denver traded that to acquire quarterback Russell Wilson. When it comes to Chubb, the Broncos' options were either to trade him or sign him to an extension, or you can actually look at it and say, you know what, he could hit free agency and the Broncos could have lost him for nothing. They decided it was best to trade him to the Miami Dolphins. Chubb was with the Broncos ever since they selected him 5th overall in the 2018, so that is the 2018 NFL draft. Chubb totaled 12 sacks in his first year. In 2019, he missed all but 4 games dealing with an ACL tear. He only had 1 sack. 2020, he was back to his old self as he had 7.5 sacks. 2021, Chubb appeared in 7 games but didn't have a sack because he was dealing with an ankle injury. This year, he looked healthy with 5.5 sacks. Denver figured they had a lot of depth in terms of linebackers. For Denver, they're hoping a healthy Randy Gregory will take Chubb's production for the rest of the year. Gregory was placed on injured reserve following the Broncos' Week 4. I'd say they played in Week 4, and then he was on IR after that. He could be back. That is, Randy Gregory could be back for next week's game against the Titans. Gregory has 2 sacks so far this season, and he's been great disrupting the passing game of the opponents. Nick Bonitto is a rookie who the Broncos want to see more from and may have more playing time with this trade. Bonitto so far has 1.5 sacks. So if you look at it, Bradley Chubb is gone. Nick Bonitto is going to see more playing time, and Randy Gregory, they hope, will be his replacement. Not bad if you look at Nick Bonitto's stats with 1.5 sacks. So it's not a horrible idea. It wasn't a horrible idea to trade Chubb for a first-round pick. If you look at running back Chase Edmonds, it just provides depth at the running back position, I should say. So Chase Edmonds, it's just depth at the running back position. Javonte Williams is out for the year with a torn ACL and LCL in his knee. Running back Mike Boone is out until week 13 with an ankle injury. That left Melvin Gordon and Latavius Murray as the only running backs on the roster. This year, Gordon has rushed for 263 yards and 2 touchdowns. Of course, he's a liability out there since he can't hold on to the football. He fumbles too many times. He has a total of 4 fumbles and lost 2 so far this year. Latavius Murray has only appeared in 3 games for Denver with 37 carries and has 136 rushing yards for Denver and 2 touchdowns. I get it for Denver. They needed another running back. Chase Edmonds is another guy just to add depth, so it kind of makes sense there. He should play behind Gordon and Murray. If you look at Chase Edmonds, he totaled 120 rushing yards for the Dolphins with 2 touchdowns this year. His numbers may not improve, but he should be able to pass block as well as run with the football when Murray and Gordon need rest. So it's really a little bit of depth, even if he doesn't improve those numbers a whole heck of a lot. The best part of Chase Edmonds' game is he hasn't fumbled the ball at all this year. It's not a huge improvement in the running game, but at least it's depth at the running back position. The Broncos also made another move as they added more depth at the linebacker position. They swapped a 4th-round pick for linebacker Jacob Martin. Martin is in his 5th year in the NFL. He has played for the Jets this year, and he's a threat to tackle a runner in the open field in the running game, and that's where the Broncos struggle. He can also create pressure on the quarterbacks. This season so far, Martin has 8 tackles and 1.5 sacks when he was with the New York Jets. I know those don't sound great, but The thing is, he goes to a better defense, that is the Denver Broncos, than the New York Jets. He may be able to improve those numbers he had this year. If you look at his career numbers, he has 15 sacks. That is, Jacob Martin has 15 sacks and 40 tackles. The best part of his game, though, is he can force fumbles. He has forced 7 fumbles in his career. Now, if you look at this move, it's another linebacker for the Denver Broncos. If you compare Chubb and Martin, both of these guys, these linebackers, were drafted in 2018. The main difference between Martin and Chubb is Martin has been more healthy than Chubb. Martin has actually appeared in 69 games compared to Chubb's 49. That is 20 more games played for Martin than Chubb. Great deal if you look at that. The Broncos are anticipating these trades will help them for the rest of the year. Of course, the first round pick that the Dolphins gave to Denver won't help this team next year, or this year, I should say, but it could help the team next year. So the first round pick that the Dolphins gave the Broncos won't help the team this year. It could be a player who will help them for years to come. And I do like the first round pick because now you have a first round pick that you wouldn't have otherwise. On to my NFL picks of the week. Last week wasn't bad as I was 4-1. Overall, I am pretty good at 26-14. So pretty good picks for me so far in terms of the record. We will start with the LA Chargers versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Chargers are a 3-point favorite. If you look at the Chargers, they are dangerous because they can throw the football with Justin Herbert and run with it, especially on the ground with Austin Eckler. When Eckler has the ball, those gains can go for 4 or 5 yards on the ground. His running game opens up the passing game for Justin Herbert. Herbert is tough to play against since he can read the defense as well. The way the Falcons win this game, at least on defense, is to stop the run. Doing that won't allow Austin Eckler to run the football. Make the Chargers a passing team. Also blitz Justin Herbert. That may make him hold on to the football for sacks, or even a little pressure will force Herbert to throw the football sooner than he wants to, which could equal turnovers. For the Falcons offense, Marcus Mariota, their quarterback, can use his legs to buy time. Also, he can move outside the pocket and run with the football. When Mariota has time, he will find his receivers. He trusts Drake London and tight end Kyle Pitts, among others, to catch the football to gain yards. So what do the Chargers need to do? Well, have great coverage so Mariota can't find his receivers. Also blitz 4 or 5 guys and have a spy. That way, Mariota cannot run with the football. This also, if you have a spy, won't allow Mariota to run outside the pocket. So I think you have to keep him in the pocket. In the end, though, Atlanta wins the football game. The Minnesota Vikings versus the Washington Commanders. Minnesota is a 3.5-point favorite. Minnesota is dangerous on offense because quarterback Kirk Cousins, can throw the football. He is one of the top young receivers to throw to in the NFL game, and that is Justin Jefferson. Cousins also has Adam Thielen at the wide receiver position. The Washington defense can't allow these receivers to beat them. If you do, those will be large chunks of yards. Of course, Minnesota also uses the running game with Dalvin Cook. The Washington Commanders need to be mindful of this. Stop the running game, and that will force Kirk Cousins to throw the football. As for Washington's offense, Tyler Heineke is their quarterback, and he must protect the football. Do not have turnovers because that will cost you the game. The winner of this game, though, will be the Minnesota Vikings. The Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are a 2-point favorite. Now, Seattle and Arizona have quarterbacks that are similar styles. Both Geno Smith, who is the quarterback of Seattle, and Kyler Murray, the quarterback for Arizona, are running quarterbacks. Sure, both of them can throw the football, but when there is an opening, they will run with the football as well. The defenses for both teams have to keep these quarterbacks in the pocket and spy them. For Seattle, though, Smith has receivers he can pass the football to. These include D.K. Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Marquise Goodwin. Or I should say Marquise Goodwin, not Godwin. He is Marquise Goodwin. Arizona's Kyler Murray also has receivers he can trust. Those are Robbie Anderson, DeAndre Hopkins, and tight end Zach Ertz. This game comes down to the red zone and third downs. The team that can keep drives alive and can score more touchdowns in the red zone will come away with a victory, and that will be Seattle. The Buffalo Bills versus the New York Jets. The Bills are a 3-point favorite. The Buffalo Bills are so difficult to play against because they have an MVP quarterback, Josh Allen. Allen is a threat to run with the football, plus he has a strong arm to throw the football. He looks for Stephon Diggs and other receivers. For the Jets defense, find a way to stop the passing game of the Buffalo Bills. For the New York Jets, what do they do well on offense? Well, they run the football. Quarterback Zach Wilson doesn't have to do much when the running game is working. Even when he passes it, Zach Wilson has been smart with the football and avoids the big turnover. The truth is, the Bills defense is one of the best in the league. What do they do well? Well, they pressure the quarterback, but they only use 4 or 5 guys. That is their front 4 or 5 guys. They don't really blitz, but hey, when you have a great offense, or I should say defensive line that is pushing back the offensive line, you do not need a blitz. So if you are Zach Wilson and the offense for the New York Jets, you have to protect Zach Wilson so the Buffalo Bills do not sack him. If not, if you do get sacked, that's going to be the difference in field possession and turnovers. This isn't going to be much of a game as the Bills roll. The Tennessee Titans versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are a 12-point favorite. Tennessee, the way they're successful on offense is running the football. If the ground game is working, that's going to control the clock. If you do that, if you control the clock, that will not allow Kansas City and that high-powered offense on the field if the ground game is working for the Tennessee Titans. Kansas City knows this and has to stop the run. If they do, that will force the Tennessee Titans to throw the football. The Chiefs, though, their offense is dangerous. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes can buy time by running around in the pocket. He also has Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster to throw the ball to. So if you look at it, he has 2 dangerous weapons, Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster to pass the football to. For the Titans defense, if they have a chance to sack Patrick Mahomes, you have to bring him down. If not, Mahomes will either run with the football when he's outside the pocket, or he'll find an open receiver, and that's going to kill you. For Tennessee, their game plan to win is to control the clock. Go on long drives and don't allow Patrick Mahomes and that offense on the field. You cannot have short drives. In the end, Kansas City wins this game at home. So my picks again, the LA Chargers versus the Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta. Minnesota versus Washington, Minnesota. Seattle versus Arizona, Seattle. The Buffalo Bills versus the New York Jets. I should say that will be the Buffalo Bills. The Tennessee Titans versus the Kansas City Chiefs, Kansas City. Let's review my picks again. The LA Chargers versus the Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta. Minnesota versus Washington, we're going to go with Minnesota. Seattle versus Arizona, Seattle. Buffalo Bills versus the New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills. The Tennessee Titans versus the Kansas City Chiefs, Kansas City. I know I said them twice, but I wanted you to know who I am picking this week in case you want to write them down. I'm Jordan Long. This has been Under Review. Read my blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com. Check out all the shows we have on the Sideline Sports Network, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of them. We have shows every single day. This has been a Sideline Sports production.